of Sri Lankan populations, the Sinhalese and the Adivasi Veda samples from Sri Lanka. Along with that, she's been able to do some DNA barcoding of research of certain plants, algae that are endemic to Sri Lanka. So, Dr. Ruwandi Ranasinghe, may you kindly present your work.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam. Everyone. So today, actually, though I'm a molecular biologist, today I'm not going to talk about. Okay, sorry for that. So, today my presentation is basically based on the overview of the haplogroups in major ethnic groups and Adivasi population in Sri Lanka. So, when we talk about the strategic location of Sri Lanka and where it was, so it's in the middle of the Indian Ocean, in the Bay of Bengal. So it's actually the geographical location makes it more prone to human migrations in different time scales in time to time. So because of that, there are many of the people come to Sri Lanka as invaders, travelers. So then we'll get some overview of the geography, how the geographies change in India and Sri Lanka. You know that when it's time of Gondwana, Sri Lanka and India is normally preserved as a one geographical mass. Then it was then make separated time to time due to the rise of the sea level and at least around 7,000 years ago the last rising was happens. Then it's separated from Indian landmass. So when we looked on the population diversity in Sri Lanka, you have seen in blue colors the Sinhalese are the major ethnic group, which was representing higher percentage in almost all the part of the Sri Lanka except the upper part. So the orange color represents the Sri Lankan Tamils, just predominant in the northern province and also in the eastern province. So, but there are some percentages in different provinces. So, what are the evidence that we have in human settlements in a historical aspect? So, if we see the time scale of evidence in Sri Lankans, we have seen the archaeological evidence in 125,000 years ago, but there is no skeletal remains, just some lithic artifacts. Then we are having some skeletal remains in nearly 13,000 years ago. This is a full skeletal remain, which was known as the Balangoda man, which was belonged to the Balangoda culture. And we have found out some evidence on cultivation in barley and oats in the Horton Plains in a little bit highlands in 17,500 years ago. And then we'll move to some legendary king named as Ravana. There are some evidences related to this Ravana. So after that, we'll come to the migration of contemporary population in Sri Lanka. So it was believed that Sinhalese are originated from North Indian Aryans, and then Dravidians from Southern Indian Dravidians. There are some invasions time to time, and Muslims and Malays are basically traders who came to Sri Lanka in different time scales. From Muslims mainly from Arabian Peninsula and the Malays from Southeast Asia, and Indian Chinese who was brought from the occupation of Englishmen as estate workers in Tamil Nadu, basically. So then I just give some historical evidences. In the written historical evidences, it was believed, as in the written record in Mahavansa, what is the record in Sri Lanka, it was indicated that the arrival of Prince Vijaya. Then, long before that, there are some written record in Divyavadana, the book known as Divyavadana. There are some that Sri Lanka is known as Sinhala Deepa, or the people that island belongs to Sinhalese. Then the Buddhism came at the time of Emperor Ashoka by his son Arahat Mahinda Thero. Then afterwards, that Emperor Ashoka's daughter Sanghamitra Therani came with sacred bows with some kind of associates with it says 18 different people who are attained with 18 different craftsmen and nobility people who are working in the different areas. And afterwards, the tooth relic, the sacred tooth relics were brought from India to Sri Lanka from Kalinga. So one of the prince and princess from Kalinga was brought that tooth relic to Sri Lanka at the 4th century. So, but though we are talking about most of the evidences after the Buddhism, but there are some evidences. It was said that the Lord Buddha visited Sri Lanka several times long before the Buddhism came, and where the written records has indicated there are Buddhism in Sri Lanka. So, and there are some stone inscriptions said that that Sangarakita Thero, a pupil of some Agrasam Karahat Sariputta Thero, teaching Naga children in Sri Lanka. So, who are the Sinhalese, the major population in Sri Lanka? Actually, present Sinhalese are kind of an admixture of these three. The native population in Sri Lanka, Yakkanaga and Raksha, and some migrants from northern India and subsequent migrants from India, either it's a northern or south. So the native Sinhalese are the people who come from southern Beachcomber route, or the northern route from mainland India, or the southeastern route. So Sri Lankan Tamil is also an admixture of some of the natives in the country with the subsequent migrants in a different time scales. So the Adivasi population are the most interested group in Sri Lanka. They were believed they were descendants from prehistoric humans inhabited in Sri Lanka. So prehistoric means, I think you may remember that I have mentioned the Balangodu man who is believed to be living 38,000 years ago. It was believed that the Vata are also descendants from those people who are lived at that time in Sri Lanka. Or else there are other three thoughts also. They may be a descendants from first Aryan. That word is not using now the Aryan, but still there are written records named as Aryan Prince Vijaya, the son of Prince Vijaya and his wife Kureni. they were abolished after some time, they were believed they were descendants from those children. Or they may be the descendants from Proto-Australoid or Proto-Negroid. Or maybe finally they were migrants from tribal groups from India. So here I will give you just glimpse of the early studies based on gene frequency data of 1814 and blood groups. In this study they were concluded that this Indian subcontinent population is more closer to the Sinhalese populations than other Iranian, Afghan or North Indian populations. And the study on allopolymorphism markers, it's a study on 2007, actually it's a bit older study. It was indicated that Sinhalese are more close to Bengalis than other Tamil, Punjabi or Gujarat populations. So from here, I'll discuss what we are studies. Just give you some summary of the mitochondrial haplogroups, not in the technical aspects. So we have selected samples throughout the country in a different time scales in different studies. So we will actually look on maternally no mixed intermarriage, maternally unmixed populations. Minimum, we ask them to the study samples to recall at least 3 generations back to minimize the mixture. So then we use some standard sequencing in different, at the different times we use different time scales. So then we move to the next generation sequencing. So when we look on how it's the M and N macrohaplogroup distributions, we have seen that almost all the contemporary population except Indian Tamils having a kind of a similar pattern. Indian Tamils and the Vanda having kind of a little bit different patterns than the other 4 populations. So if we see that how these haplogroups are distributed phylogeographically, so you have seen that most are Southern Asian, but also some Western Eurasian, East Asian, Southeast Asian and South Pacific in a minor amount. And this is kind of a summary of the PCA that was built by using 675 samples already established samples and some samples in our studies with some Asian samples and samples from some Indian data. We have seen that all the contemporary Sri Lankans are having a clustering with some Indians, either it's a northern or the northwest kind of Indian populations as listed here. It's very difficult to read. So, but interestingly, here you are seeing 5 different Vanda clans. It means clans means they were lived in small villages and different. They were saved. They were originate. The originate of those clans are a little bit different when you have to save each other. But it's interestingly, though irrespective to their clans, they were separated from other groups. So it's, if you are saying they are having just like irrespective to these distances, they are appear as a one clan. So how did it, if you are seeing the deeper clustering pattern of the common M haplogroups in Sri Lanka and different populations, you can see in an Indian Tamil obviously that M2 is common. And in Sinhalese, it's M65 is the commonest one. So where are the M65ers? So it was seen, we have spotted some areas that we can see the M65 in different part of the Asia, and some Syria we have dotted one. This is one from the Tamil merchant who went from India to Syria, and it's an ancient DNA study. So this, if you see the distribution of M sulfate, again it's also having some kind of different patterns in different populations. In Veda, you can see R30 and R5 is the most predominant subclades, where the Sri Lankan Tamils it shows R7 and the Sinhalese and Sri Lankan Tamils it may be the R7. So when we move to the prevalence of U haplogroups in these populations, you can see, especially look on Veda you can see U7, obviously, and the Sri Lankan Tamils it's U2I in a different class area. See, so if you look on summary, you can see some Indian subclades of U are seen in Sri Lankan Tamil, Nuan and Malay. Some West Eurasian U7 in U7A, in Sinhalese, and there is no U7A observed in the Sri Lankan Tamils. So if we see in these West Eurasian haplogroups, it was seen that that quite higher percentage in Indian caste and low percentage in Indian tribal populations. So when we look on U7A subclades in Adivasi populations, we can see it's a U7A, it's a West Eurasian. So it was actually basically spreading this area. So when we look on R5 is a South Asian haplogroup. It was believed to be derived from Near East and Middle East to India more frequently among caste populations. So interestingly, R30 subclades seen in Adivasi population in Sri Lanka, it shares with Sri Lanka, Tamil and some Malay, and also it was also observing these subclades, also observing some skeletal remains from the root complete. So apart from those haplogroups, we have observed some kind of specific haplogroups in our Sinhalese samples. It's a kind of a deeper clades from U2E1A1 from Asian genome from Ukraine, belongs to late Neolithic culture, and U4C1 Central Asian Yamnaya, and H6A1A from it's derived from H6A from Asian genome from Poland. So as a summary, if you are seeing distribution of South Asian haplogroups, South Asian haplogroups being the commonest among Sri Lankans, support the historical evidence of female migration from India, and it's also on beachcomber roots in some subclades. And some West Eurasian haplogroups were seen in Sinhalese, Sri Lankan, Tamils and Veda, and some predominant mitochondrial DNA haplogroups in Malays and Muslims. So this is final, just 1 minute. This is first Asian DNA study in Sri Lanka. We was getting samples from 2 fractured caves from Balangoda area, and that was belongs to 2 different timelines. This is the canine tool, and we were successfully generated the mitochondrial haplogroups of those 2, and it was M18A and M35A. It's a very frequent in India. It was frequent, means not frequent, but it's reported frequently when compared with other Asian populations. It's reported frequently in India, among the Indian populations, and some in Romania and Bangladesh, Nepal, and some in India. But M18A is not reported in Mania, Indonesia, and the Pakistan. So this is the summary. The Sri Lankans, we believe we are having out of African ancestry, and we are having different maternal sources. We are having either different maternal sources or we are having common ancestors. And we have seen some admixtures in contemporary populations. And also, we believe that Vada cluster having separate ancestry than the other contemporary populations. So I need to acknowledge my mentors, Professor Karnanayaka, founder director of my institute, and founder and first director, and Professor Emeritus Professor Kamini Senapon, my two mentors, and my collaborators from Professor Marialan from Uppsala, Dr. Professor Raj Somadev, Dr. Tangaraj, Dr. Niraj, Dr. Shobe, and Professor Mahasa from University of Chicago, and my PhD students, and also all the members of my institute, and my funding agencies and sample donors. Thank you.
Okay, Madam, you've taken much of time, so maybe we can have just one question. Just one question, please.
So you are actually data context the historical aspects there, like Indian Tamils and Sri Lankan Tamils are actually not similar. So then where did the Sri Lankan Tamil come from? That one. Second issue is that your script is more of a Oriya language, right? Sinhalese script is very close to Oriya language. So therefore one would really start wondering where did the script come from? Where does Sinhalese script come from? Is it from India or you had your own script?
Actually, it was, you mean the Sinhala language. It was
Sinhala language script.
Scripts. Yeah, it's having, there are some different aspects on origin of the Sinhala. So actually, I don't know exactly from where it comes.
Because somewhere you showed earlier in the very first.
Yeah, it's a script.
That Sri Lankan Sinhalese are very close to Bengalis.
It was
Earlier it was
yeah, it's an early study.
So and Bengalis are related to basically Oriya to some extent.
Yes.
So therefore, I would say that the Sinhalese script possibly must have come from Odisha.
Maybe because I'm not a linguistic person actually.
No, because all this history basically can be reflected in the genomics. And the genomics is conflicting the history there.
It's actually the early study what we have shown in here is not that much, the conclusions are not that much similar, not when we have come to the deeper studies. So it can be changed. It's a blood markers, it's a low level markers.
All right, we do have a linguist in the house, but he was nodding his head here and there. Maybe after tea in the coffee break, you can have a more clarification. So please, anyway, just the last one because he's been raising his hand.
Excuse me, madam. Now this is quite interesting because there is some observation in which even I see that ancestral ancient South Indians who we see, the interior tribes, along with the ancestral South Indian component, especially in the maternal ancestry, they have these very early West Eurasian components. So they are not present in the later migrants, but the earliest ones who came down South India have this West Eurasian, which couldn't be called as West Eurasian because there are two time frames for West Eurasian gene pool. So that's what I feel, and I think Dalangoda man also belong to that earliest migration, along with some of the tribes from the South Indian hunter-gatherers. So it's quite interesting because there are clearly two waves from West Eurasia with a big time gap.
Yes, we also believe there may be at least two waves. Basically, maybe come from the southern coastal and the inland from India. Actually, we have observed there are some components in Veda. Actually, this is what I have presented, but we also completed some whole genome analysis, but I am not presenting that data because the conclusion are still made in. So we have observed some East Asian components admixture in the Veda population also.
And all these groups belong to the pre-LGM period. So it's quite evident that the West Eurasian which we talk of today is very recent than the West Eurasian gene pool which came down